You are listening to or watching the Filmcast at thefilmcast.com or youtube.com/filmcast. Welcome to our review of Don't Worry, Darling. Here's the plot summary from IMDb. A 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry that his glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets. This movie obviously has had a lot of controversy, a lot of gossip around it, but at the end of the day, guys, when the lights come down in the theater and the movie begins, we have a movie in front of us that we can elaborate, we can evaluate.
We have moving pictures.
We have
with
moving
sound
pictures and accompanying
now.
sounds that we can evaluate separate from any of the outside world context. So, given all of that, Devindra Hardwar.
I wish you had just quoted our patron saint, Nicole Kidman. we have. Was that what you were trying to do? Did I mess that up?
I don't know.
No, I was just dazzling pictures and sound.
Yeah.
Heartbreak
Pretty-
feels good in a place like this.
good.
You know?
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. We should probably open every review that way, to be honest.
It's true.
Anyway.
You should.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we
Against
have
our
dazzling
hearts.
pictures and
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah. Our heroes are the best version of who we are. Heartbreak feels good. Somehow heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Okay. Devindra Hardwar
Mm-hmm.
evaluating Don't Worry, Darling as a film.
Sure.
You know, what did you think of this movie?
It's fine. It's fine. It's not terrible, but watching this movie really makes me think like you could just make a bingo of these types of movies, right? The sort of like mysteries where something is off. There may be an underlying conspiracy. Florence Pugh should not be in this cultish environment. Something like that. I think there's a lot of like interesting elements of this movie. I like the cast. In particular, I didn't realize Nick Kroll was in this, and he is like having a lot of fun. So it's just entertaining watching these people in this like, you know, beautiful desert town and trying to figure out like what the heck is going on here. And I think Florence Pugh, like, really, it's all Florence Pugh. Like, I will watch her do anything. She is just so captivating, even when like what she's doing doesn't make any sense. And even as the movie careens into like nonsensical territory, I'm still compelled by watching her and hoping she is okay. So I think this is a perfectly fine movie. I think my wife will really enjoy the sort of like twists and turns of this. I feel like I've seen this sort of thing before so many times, and that's pretty much it. I don't feel like it's adding much new to this type of film. This sort of like I don't know what you'd call it, right? A closed off community where it seems like something weird is going on. You know, clearly there's a lot of like gender roles being pushed in certain ways too. And I think it's an interesting commentary and all that stuff. I'm more interested in talking about this movie and the twist and like where things go.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where it had a chance to be even more interesting, and it kind of failed. But yeah, overall, I wasn't bored by it, but I will say I struggled to stay awake during this movie in the theater. So maybe watch it at home with some caffeine.
But you weren't bored, but you couldn't stay awake.
Maybe you're just tired. Maybe you're just tired that day.
I'm always tired these days.
Devindra's taking care of two kids.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's boring, but it's not like aside from Florence Pugh, it's not as like captivating or interesting a movie like this should be. I'd say. Yeah.
It's not a super quickly paced.
It's not the Green Knight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not doing much interesting stuff. I was fully awake for the Green Knight because there was actual narrative.
You guys are just like trying to start a fight with each other. This whole episode is kind of my sense. Like
listen,
you're saying things left and right. I'm like, oh, that's really going to piss off the other guy.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I do.
Okay.
We did agree that it's ridiculous that you still haven't seen Firefly. Because,
I mean, sure.
Jeff Kanata, what are your thoughts on Don't Worry, Darling?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts on Don't Worry, Darling are best summed up in the form of a limerick. I spent most of this movie suspending my disbelief and depending on a film that's as smart as this seems at the start to not shit the bed at the ending.
Yes. That's pretty good.
I was really enjoying this movie.
Yeah.
Really enjoying this movie.
Same.
Really. I had heard a bunch of negative buzz about Don't Worry, Darling, and I expected it to kind of be a mess. And I was so enraptured with it. I thought the filmmaking was great. I loved the art direction of this community, this 50s aesthetic where all of the knickknacks and little house decor elements were so evocative of a specific feeling and time period. And I thought the performances are great. You talk about Florence Pugh, she's great. Chris Pine is incredible. Every time he's on screen is just magnetic, and he delivers these lyrical monologues that are incredible. I just thought the movie was amazing. However, one of the things that's amazing about it is that it is constantly asking this question. What's going on? What's going on? Ooh, are you curious about what's going on? You better, there's some stuff going on.
Yeah.
What's going on?
If you get tired of that early on, the movie may not work for you as much. So
Well,
maybe that's it. Yeah.
I wasn't, but that
I know. I'm glad you
requires-
guys enjoyed it. But I will say, I've seen Pleasantville, guys. We've seen so many things like this. I'm like, aside from Florence Pugh, what are you doing here that's really interesting? But yeah, go ahead.
What Jeff's saying is that if you're gonna spend the 90% of the movie asking this
Yes,
question,
you should
you
pay
need
it
to
off.
have-
deliver
you should pay
the
it off.
goods.
You have to have a satisfying answer to the question.
Yeah.
And this movie has one of the most spectacularly awful endings I have ever seen.
It's pretty dumb.
It's
pretty dumb.
It to wrap your head around the ramifications of what it's like they didn't watch the entire previous movie that they were making. Twist is the wrong word. It's an answer to the question that has been raised in a way that makes absolutely no sense. That just sort of lifts whole cloth from other movies, other better movies, and those other movies spend the entire movie explaining
building
the
that
thing.
up. Yeah,
and this movie just sort of shorthands it and goes, you've seen other movies that have said stuff like this, so you get it. And it's like, no, it's such a shame, because I was so in and having such a good time and so curious and cared about these characters and thought, and we'll get to this in spoilers, but it's such an easy fix. Like, it didn't have to do this incredibly boneheaded thing it does that undermines everything it said, raises way more logistical and logical questions than it should. It's just like, it literally goes, nothing that you have set up is paid off sufficiently here. And many of the things that you've set up make no sense now. No sense at all. And we'll enumerate that.
We gotta wait for that. Yeah.
But the point is that I'm actually much more disappointed in this movie than I thought I would be when I thought I was going to go in and see a train wreck of a movie. That I thought I was going to see just a movie that was a mess. It's actually worse than that, because the movie's really good. I mean, really good. I was into it, actively loving it, just like soaking in the performances and the mise en scène and just like all of the wonderful texture of this movie that it just squanders. And it's literally like, walk out 10 minutes before the end and it will be a better movie experience than watching it to the end.
Yeah. I got to say, I completely agree, Jeff. I liked the movie as well. I'm watching this movie. I'm like, wow, I can't believe this movie has like a 30-something% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
This is incredible. This is really, really well done. Olivia Wilde,
you during the first 50-70% of this movie, all good.
Yeah. And as you said, Florence Pugh is really giving it her all. I actually thought Harry Styles did a good job in this movie.
I agree.
I thought he was solid in this movie. And I'm watching the movie. I'm like, this is great. How would anyone possibly dislike this? And then we get to the end and it's a mess. And but even still, despite the ending that is a mess, I think the movie still does enough cool things. It's still thought-provoking enough that I still end up having a positive impression of the film. Like, I don't know if I'd recommend it to everyone, but when I think back on Don't Worry, Darling, it's a movie I liked. I like that movie. It has massive problems, almost all of them because of the final 20-30 minutes, right? But I still have a positive impression because I feel like Olivia Wilde is really a filmmaker that's trying to say something with this movie, and
gifted. Like the way there are some sort of, action is the wrong word, but there are some actiony moments that are
Mhm.
filmed really, really well. They're
Yeah.
like the actors are incredibly well directed, and it's sumptuous. She's a
Yeah.
great director.
Yeah,
There's
Just
a
like
nice
she wa-
visual style to it, like
Yeah.
throughout.
It
Yeah.
feels like she was failed on the script level.
Agreed.
Mhm.
100%. 100%. That said, the movie did open really well. And so I'm hoping this will lead to more opportunities for Olivia Wilde because I do think she's very talented. But we have so much more to discuss. Why don't we get to it right now? So let's do spoilers for Don't Worry, Darling, starting now. So this is usually the part of the show where I talk about what happened at the end of this, in the movie, but I'm still not quite sure. I mean, basically,
It's just like, hey, remember the Matrix?
Yeah. It's
Florence-
it's all a simulation. Everybody.
Florence Pugh and Harry Styles' character are like together on the outside, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if they were married, but they're definitely
No,
boyfriend girlfriend.
doesn't seem
I don't
like,
think they were
yeah.
married.
Right?
Yeah.
And then she, I think, leaves him at some point because he's
I
so
don't-
he's so gross and disgusting on the outside. I don't know if you guys
He doesn't
know this.
have a job. He's spending
He-
all his time on Reddit.
He's watching.
Come
He's
on.
listening to incel podcasts, and
Played by
and so
Chris
my
Pine.
my
Yeah.
interpretation was like he left because we see him like knocking on the door with flowers at some point. Like maybe that's their home together, but maybe like they've broken
Mhm.
up or whatever. And I guess kidnaps her and puts her into this Matrix-like environment where they can together live out this husband-wife fantasy from the 1950s.
It makes
Yeah.
no sense. It makes no sense at all.
Now, this raises tons of questions, unfortunately. Like, how is Florence Pugh kept alive? Like,
Yeah.
did
Well,
her
he's
physical
feeding
body
her
kept alive?
droplets of water. So that's all. What about her
What-
job? What about
What,
her
yeah, what about
family?
her job? Like, what is
Anything.
I mean,
what is he doing during the day to
He's
work? To
working.
maintain?
He's
working.
The guy who was unemployed now all of a sudden has
now
a
it
job.
has double.
to-
Has
to
a
support
whole
them.
doctor's salaries worth of extra money to be able
Yes.
Yeah.
to. It's,
What
Makes
is up
no
with the
sense.
plane crash that Florence Pugh saw earlier in the
Sure.
movie?
Sure.
Okay, so
What's with the rumbling?
the
that
idea
they
here-
hear?
Chris Pine's character outside the world, which we never see, we never get any explanation about, but he has created this utopian simulation
Mhm.
that is a virtual reality.
We see him in the like podcast thing, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
hear
yeah,
his
that's
voice.
it.
but We never
Yeah.
We hear his voice, yeah, but
Yeah.
he's created a
he's
San
created-
Junipero type world
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
yeah.
Exactly. So, but for some reason, that place still needs to be cleaned, and like the things though, it makes no sense that there are some people. The Olivia Wilde character chooses to be there, and one would
Mhm.
assume most people would choose to be there. There's no explanation, and it makes no sense why Chris Pine's character would want anyone to be brought there against their will. It feels like a real violation of the terms of service of whatever that
Well,
software
it seems
is.
like that's what it was built for.
That's
It was
part of the
built for
point, in
that.
my opinion. That
Yeah.
part didn't bother me,
Yeah.
because the idea behind what Chris Pine is espousing is that like he wants he's
Yeah.
kind of a Jordan Peterson.
What if an incel made his own metaverse?
right? He's
Basically.
kind of
Why-
he's kind of like
okay,
yeah, exactly.
There are fictional children who are just simulation children.
Yes.
Why do you need a real human woman to be in there at all? Just have a simulated woman.
Okay, yeah, that's a
Well,
good. That's a good actually point. Is like why not have simulated women in there? If
You have
can-
simulated children. Like
have
I would,
simulated
if the
children.
movie even. I mean,
Yeah.
the slightest thing it could do is to say, "Well, we can't simulate human beings," but it fucking does.
Yeah.
like it does that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's no reason why you couldn't just create the women.
yeah.
Like,
Well, the point is to control their women in real life. Like,
Yes.
to-
well, I get that
that's
the movie's
yeah,
saying
that's
that, but it's
the-
doing it in
yeah.
the stupidest possible way. Like,
Yeah.
I'm into this movie. I love this. Literally, all that they had to do was say jibber jabber science fiction-y stuff. They erased your memory, and you brought you here physically, and you
Mhm.
reinvented
Oh, yeah.
you. Like, literally,
the
just
idea of
don't
it being
make
a
it simulation.
The idea of it being a Matrix was what really that's really where the movie completely
Like
goes
literally
off the rails.
just like
Right.
make
Yeah.
some dumb mumbo jumbo thing. It doesn't even have to make any sense, but just say, hey, you took a pill and we wiped your memory and now you're here in the 50s. It's not actually the 50s outside of here, but
Yeah.
it's the village or whatever.
Mhm.
It's
It's the village.
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
a
yeah.
way better movie than like she has things on her eyeballs that make her what?
Well,
Have sex with him? Like
Yeah.
it's like what? At least
It's-
the
it's
Matrix
specific.
plugged into the back of your freaking brain. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Jeff, you're really getting worked up about this, huh, man?
I liked the movie.
See, that's
I
the
wanted
thing.
to like it.
You like the beginning.
It's
yeah.
such an easy fix. It's such an easy fix. Literally, like they club the women over the head. They bring them to this place in this desert that pretends to be the 50s, and it's not actually the 50s. Is a much more interesting movie than it's all in a computer. That's the stupidest
The specifics of it, like I don't like the VR stuff. Okay, fine. It's more like what are you trying to say, and like what is this movie trying to say? And it gets so confused by the end in terms of like the specifics do get confusing there in terms of like what is the overall message, like the men controlling women. Yeah,
because the plot is so confusing. I agree that the theme is lost somewhat, but I do think it's still an interesting idea, which is, you know, thematically what I can tell is that the movie's trying to say that to what extent are women willing to give up, or are men willing to take away women's autonomy and you know, their self-determination,
right,
to put them in a situation where gender roles are more conventional, or not conventional, traditional, old school, whatever.
Make relationships
well,
great
it's saying
again.
the traditional gender roles are a form of sublimation. You know, it's
subjugation. And they're a form of subjugation, and it's like that what we saw as, oh, these people being super happy in the family actually was removing a bunch of independence and agency and autonomy from these women, right?
Right.
Like,
that's 50s,
kind of
the 50s as an ideal was inherent, like the notion of it, even if it was never even that, the Ozzie and Harriet notion itself was, you know,
was
unfair.
A form of subjugating women, right? And that's a very compelling idea that has been brought to life, and like Mad Men is a great example.
Stepford Wives, there's a million of them.
Yeah, so not saying it's a bad idea, not saying there's not new territory to explore, but I agree with you, Jeff, that the plotting of the final third was just really a disaster. Now, there was an article at Insider.com entitled "Don't Worry, Darling" botches its ending and concludes with a cliffhanger. Here's how the script originally ended. And they kind of quote from an earlier version of the script, where here's I'm going to read to you what the ending originally was. Right, that Florence Pugh's character returns back to reality not through getting shock treatment like in the movie, but comes across an exit portal back to the real world disguised as a house for sale in the village. Hooked to a machine and IV, she gets out of bed and crawls to escape from wherever she is. She learns that she's in their apartment in the future, 2050 to be exact. Not only that, she finds a certificate of divorce with their names on it. She gets in front of a futuristic computer and learns all about the company called Alt Life, in which a man can live in a cyberspace that resembles 1950s suburban America, where a world controlled by women no longer exists. All the man has to do is fake his wife's death and strap her to the machine so she can share the experience with him. Allison finds articles saved with the headlines about her going missing, the police searching for her, and finally, thousands of people mourning for her when the search is called off, end quote. So, that's a lot more detail about how that all actually works.
That makes a lot more sense, actually.
It makes a lot more sense. Now they chose to end the movie
in the future, but that's cool. I don't know.
She chose to end the movie with vibes, right? She didn't end with any plot. She's just like, I think you hear Florence Pugh waking up, and she's she's kind of like out of breath, right? That's the ending of the movie, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a nice, mysterious, enigmatic ending. The problem is, none of the other stuff that happens in the movie is explained. Like the plane, like you're in your brain when you're watching the movie, you're trying to like equate what. Okay, so the plane would have been what the rumbling noises.
You're trying to think of like Usual Suspects or something like
pulling
together the elements you heard in the story. Yeah,
was the polar bear on the island?
Exactly. And you have no answers for any of that because it doesn't even feel like they thought about it. I
mean, it's not that hard too. It's like, oh, he has a TV on nearby and she hears a plane or something, or there. Like, it's not that hard.
They didn't
to like
quite give you enough.
Well, they're trying to, but they're trying to add all this weight and meaning to it, because like the other woman who slits her throat, she has an airplane like that. Like there's things that are seemingly adding up to something, and they don't add up to anything.
I do like that there's a lot of like creepy moments in the movie. You know, when she goes up to the glass,
incredible,
and you know the blood and all these visions that she has, and
dude, incredible.
In the when they're learning, I think it's ballet, learning a dance, and the other woman. Is it Kiki Lane that's in the movie, right?
It's Kiki Lane,
yeah. She is behind the glass. It's kind of very Black Swan-esque, you know, with like dancing in front of a mirror, and the mirror is not doing what you think.
Also, very Last Night in Soho too. So there's a lot,
So there's like a lot of lovely visual flourishes in the movie that I think are make it pretty admirable. But
I'm all for a vibes based resolution here too. It's just it is so different. It's so like antithetical to like the rest of the movie. So that's why maybe the ending is throwing us off. Here's the thing, though.
Why include all that stuff though? Why include like the ground? You don't need to include the ground shaking stuff.
It
like
doesn't make any
why
sense.
include it? You don't. You can just excise it from the movie. But like now we're asking the question what that is, and there's no payoff for it whatsoever.
Yeah,
as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and a line or something would kind of pay that off or something. I feel like I think it's the familiarity with this movie and like what these movies tend to do that just kind of threw me off. And like in my head, I was playing what would you call this? Like closed off community bingo in my head, and this movie just started checking off pretty much all the boxes, and I'm like, okay, it's either is the modern day or some sort of simulation, or she was kidnapped and trapped there. And like by the end of it was checking off enough where I was like, this movie is not engaging me. I know it looks nice, and I think Florence Pugh was great. Like she's always great, and honestly, what's his face? Chris Pine is really relishing this role too. Like he is somebody who is empowered by his place in that community, and you can really feel it. And he's just like oozing pure toxic masculinity too. Like there are some great performances here. I wish it added up to more. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that irked me in a big way is she smacks him with a thing, and Olivia Wilde's like, "Oh, if you die in here, you die in the real world. Why? Oh, because they did it in the Matrix, and that everybody thought that was cool."
Really, I don't remember.
There's literally no explanation as to why you would die in the real world if you died in here. Like, that makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah.
Is there a first metaverse horror movie? No, there have been others. I guess Lawnmower Man is one of those. Yeah.
I gotta say, I did enjoy seeing ugly Harry Styles though. That was like a fun little touch. Like I think he's playing with his persona, right? Is like, I
don't know.
He's like a pretty boy, and like, and then to see like, oh, he's ugly because he has a beard now.
He has a scraggly beard. He doesn't have a job. He's on Reddit all the time or whatever.
It's like in those
accent.
Yeah.
It's like watching like She's All That, and like like she actually takes off her glasses and lets down her ponytail, and now she's beautiful. It's kind of like a similar like there's a kind of silly dynamic there, I think. But anyway, any other thoughts on Don't Worry Darling as we wrap up here?
I wish it was more. How about that?
Wasted potential.
So wasted. It's
but there's some really cool stuff. And I actually thought that the moment when Harry Styles turns in his wife to have her taken away, I guess, to do whatever God does. That's a really powerful moment.
Incredible. He's crying, I'm sorry.
And she's like begging him to not do anything.
But like,
and then we learned that it was all, and then we learned it was all in the fictional simulation world,
Yeah.
Which just really, it's like, well, why do they even need to drag her away then? Why can't they just reprogram her into?
Doesn't make it. Once you say, hey, it's all virtual.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, you gotta have some rules here because your movie has been operating on a series of rules that now don't make any goddamn sense whatsoever.
It's actually very Serenity like in its terms of like,
it is Serenity. That's what
the
it
rules.
is.
Yeah. I think I saw a Letterboxd review that was like, I really enjoyed it when Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway took on this material years ago. And it's like it's similar to that.
Like it would have been a much more powerful thesis statement. A much more powerful, the concepts that they're dealing with would have landed better if it literally was you take a physical human being and you bring them out to the desert and you brainwash them into thinking that it's the 1950s again. That's a better expression of this this idea.
I think
to this moment, I don't know why they didn't do that.
I don't know why they didn't do it
that way. I think a lot of people, we don't really talk about The Village anymore, but that ending, that's a pretty good way of kind of blowing open that world. And I feel like everyone's afraid of like feeling like, oh, we're just doing that again. You have to be different, and this is different in a really dumb way.
Really dumb.
Well, at the end of the day, despite everything we have just said, it's still really impressive that Olivia Wilde made a movie.
And you know what? Also, heartbreak felt good in a place like that.
Was it the real place or was it the VR place? I don't know.
Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.